The crimson warning lights bathed the Grand Assembly Hall in an ominous glow as Ambassador Thexil of the Vorlak Federation pounded his crystalline gavel against the podium. The sound echoed like breaking glass through the massive chamber that housed representatives from over 300 species across the galaxy. Thexil's 6 eyes swept across the assembled delegates, each one showing the strain of 3 brutal solar cycles of watching civilizations burn. His crystalline body, normally a brilliant blue, had dulled to a sickly gray, a sure sign of stress among his people. "The casualties mount daily," Thexil announced, his voice carrying the weight of desperation. 17 billion souls lost. Entire worlds reduced to ash and floating debris. The Kepler 442 system, gone. New Centauri, a graveyard of molten rock. We cannot stand by and watch this madness continue. The holographic display behind him flickered to life, showing the devastation in brutal detail. Planets that once teemed with life now appeared as blackened husks. Space stations the size of small moons drifted as twisted metal graveyards. Refugee ships, packed beyond capacity, fled in all directions like scattered leaves in a cosmic storm. From the floating platform reserved for the aquatic delegation, Admiral Glubrex's tentacles writhed in visible agitation. The massive cephalopod's bioluminescent patches flashed angry reds and oranges as he spoke through his water-filled communication sphere. "Look at these numbers," Glubrex gurgled, his tentacles manipulating a holographic display. The Zephyrian, Empire fields over 2,000 battle cruisers, each one capable of cracking a planet's crust. The Crystalline Collective has 3,000 ships that can slice through our strongest shields like they're made of paper. Our combined fleets barely match a single battle group from either side. What can we possibly do against such overwhelming force? The manted representative from the Hiver Collective clicked his mandibles nervously, his compound eyes reflecting the red warning lights. "The mathematical probability of our success in direct confrontation is 0.003%, he stated, in his mechanical voice. "However, there is one option we have not considered. The newcomers from the third spiral arm." A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Several delegates leaned forward in their seats, while others activated their translation devices to ensure they had heard correctly. "Specify the newcomers," demanded General Crexter of the Reptilian Dominion, her forked tongue tasting the air for deception. The Hiver's antennae twitched as he consulted his internal databases. Species designation: human. Recently achieved: faster-than-light capability. Current location: scattered colonies in the Outer Rim territories. They have no formal military structure as we understand it, but their expansion rate suggests persistence. The chamber fell into absolute silence. For a moment, only the soft humming of the life support systems could be heard. Then, like a dam bursting, explosive laughter erupted from dozens of species. The sound was cacophonous, chittering from the insectoids, rumbling from the rock-like silicates, and high-pitched whistling from the energy beings. "The primitives?" Thexil's mandibles clicked in genuine amusement, his crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated mirth among his people. "I've seen their intelligence reports. They still use metal hulls welded together with primitive techniques, chemical propulsion systems that any first-year engineering student would laugh at. Their entire fleet consists of converted mining vessels and cargo haulers." Admiral Glubrex's tentacles performed what could only be described as an underwater shrug. "Their largest vessel is some sort of mobile habitat. They call it a generation ship. Imagine using the same craft for both living and traveling. How quaint." "Their weapons technology is equally amusing," added General Crexter, her reptilian features twisted in a sneer. "Kinetic projectiles accelerated by magnetic fields. They literally throw metal at their enemies. It's like watching children play with slingshots." The Ethereal Collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a translucent shell, pulsed with what translated as condescension. Their minds emit such primitive thought patterns, no telepathic abilities, no collective consciousness, no neural linking technology. They're barely above the level of the extinct Terran dinosaurs. But the Hiver remained undeterred. His compound, eyes fixed on the war statistics still glowing in the holographic display. "Desperate times call for desperate measures," he clicked solemnly. "Their technology may be crude, but intelligence reports suggest something unusual about their species. They adapt quickly to new situations. Their colonial expansion has encountered 17 different hostile environments, and they've survived them all." "Survived?" scoffed a delegate from the gaseous confederation. "Barely clinging to existence on the edge of civilized space hardly counts as thriving." "Consider this," the Hiver continued, his mechanical voice cutting through the mockery. "In their brief spacefaring history, they've encountered 3 separate pirate fleets. Each time, despite being outgunned and outnumbered, they emerged victorious. Their tactics were unconventional." This gave some delegates pause. Pirate fleets, while not military-grade, were still formidable opponents for any species new to space travel. Thexil studied the data more carefully, his crystalline form shifting to a more thoughtful blue-green. "What kind of unconventional tactics?" "They converted asteroid mining equipment into weapons, used their cargo ships as battering rams. In one case, they actually crashed their own vessel into a pirate mothership to disable it, then continued fighting in environmental suits among the wreckage." An uncomfortable silence settled over the chamber. Such reckless bravery bordered on insanity by galactic standards. "Perhaps," the Hiver continued, "their crude determination and willingness to sacrifice might serve where our sophisticated strategies have failed. Sometimes a primitive solution is exactly what a complex problem requires." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Arguments flew back and forth like plasma bolts in a firefight. Some delegates worried about introducing an unpredictable element into an already chaotic situation. Others questioned whether beings who fought with metal clubs and chemical explosives could make any difference against advanced energy weapons and shield technologies. But as the casualty reports continued streaming in, another colony world glassed. Another space station reduced to scrap metal, another million refugees fleeing into the void. Desperation began to outweigh skepticism. When the final vote was called, the motion passed by the narrowest margin in Galactic Council history. 847 votes in favor, 839 against, with 23 abstentions. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Admiral Gluberex's tentacles formed what his species considered a gesture of resignation. "I suppose we'll discover soon enough whether human stubbornness can stand against Zephyrian plasma cannons." The Hiver representative remained at his station, updating his calculations as new data flowed in. His final assessment flickered across his internal displays. Probability of human intervention changing war outcome, unknown. Previous data insufficient for accurate prediction. For the first time in Galactic Council history, the galaxy's most advanced mathematical minds were about to encounter something they couldn't compute: human unpredictability. The diplomatic mission would launch within the solar cycle. The galaxy was about to meet humanity, and nothing would ever be the same. Captain Li Huan stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Dawn, his coffee mug forgotten in his hand as he watched the most incredible sight of his life unfold through the main viewport. The alien vessel approaching them defied every human understanding of spacecraft design. Where human ships were angular blocks of welded steel and practical engineering, this craft flowed like liquid mercury, frozen mid-dance. Its hull rippled, with organic curves that seemed to breathe, while bioluminescent panels pulsed in rhythmic patterns of blue and green light. Delicate tendrils extended from its sides like the fins of some impossible deep-sea creature, and its entire surface shimmered with an oily rainbow sheen. "Sir," Communications Officer Park Nari called from her station, her voice barely concealing her excitement, "you need to hear this. The alien vessel is transmitting on 17 different frequencies simultaneously. Audio, visual, quantum, and some frequencies our equipment can't even identify." Lee set down his mug and moved to her station. "What are they saying?" "That's the weird part, Captain. The message is somehow automatically translating itself as it reaches our receivers. Listen to this." The bridge speakers crackled to life with a voice that sounded like crystal chimes mixed with electronic harmonics. "Greetings. representatives of species designation human. We are ambassadors of the Galactic Council. We request permission to board your vessel for diplomatic discourse. We come in peace and with urgent purpose. Commander Kim Dae-ho, Lee's second-in-command, whistled low. Auto-translating alien messages. Either we're in a really elaborate simulation, or we just made first contact with something way beyond our technology level. Within 2 hours, the docking procedure had been completed. The alien ship had somehow interfaced directly with New Dawn's airlock systems without any visible connections, sealing itself to the human vessel like two puzzle pieces clicking together. The main conference room had been hastily cleared and converted into a diplomatic meeting space. When the airlock hissed open, what emerged made every human present take an involuntary step backward. Ambassador Thexil towered nearly 3 meters tall, his body a living sculpture of translucent crystal that caught and refracted the room's light into dancing rainbow patterns across the walls. Behind him floated Admiral Glubrex, contained within what appeared to be a sphere of water that somehow maintained its shape without any visible container. His tentacles moved in graceful patterns as his bioluminescent patches flickered in complex sequences. The third member of the delegation defied easy description. The HFY representative appeared as a fusion of insect and machine, with compound eyes that reflected the room like mirrors and mechanical limbs that clicked and whirred with each precise movement. Fascinating, Thexil's voice resonated through, a small device floating near his crystalline head. Your species constructs meeting spaces with such primitive but functional efficiency. The geometric simplicity is almost charming. Captain Lee stepped forward, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. Welcome aboard the New Dawn. I'm Captain Lee Hwan. These are my senior officers, Commander Kim Dae-ho and Chief Engineer Choi Min-soo. The aliens performed what might have been greeting gestures. Thexil's crystal body chimed softly, Glubrex's tentacles formed intricate knots, and the hiver's mechanical components clicked in a rhythmic pattern. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel, Thexil began, his translated voice carrying an undertone of surprise. Our initial assessments suggested you were several centuries away from such capability. How did you accomplish this? Technological leap, Commander Kim grinned. Stubbornness, mostly. When the first-generation ships took too long to reach the nearest star, someone figured out how to fold space instead of traveling through it. Turns out the universe has some pretty convenient shortcuts if you're willing to risk everything to find them. The 3 aliens exchanged what might have been meaningful looks. Admiral Glubrex's tentacles performed a complex weaving pattern as he spoke through his translation device. Risk everything. Yes, this aligns with our intelligence reports about your species. Intelligence reports? Lee raised an eyebrow. Standard. Procedure. The hiver clicked mechanically. All spacefaring species are monitored upon achieving interstellar capability. Your expansion patterns are unusual. Most species establish secure systems before venturing further. Humans appear to leap blindly into unknown regions with minimal preparation. Choi Min-soo laughed. That's one way to put it. We call it exploration. You can't discover new worlds by playing it safe. Thexil's crystalline form shifted colors, cycling through deep blues and purples. Which brings us to our purpose. The Galactic Council requires military assistance against 2 warring factions that threaten stability across 17 sectors. The Zephyrian Empire and Crystalline Collective have been engaged in total warfare for 3 solar cycles. The aliens activated a holographic projector that filled the center of the conference table with a 3-dimensional star map. Red zones marked areas of active conflict, while yellow indicated refugee corridors and orange showed destroyed systems. Lee studied the display, his expression growing grim. The scale of this, how many casualties? Current estimates exceed 17 billion sentient beings, Admiral Glubrex reported, his bioluminescent patches flickering to dim, sad colors. Entire species have been driven extinct. Worlds that harbored life for millions of years now exist only as radioactive debris fields. Commander Kim leaned forward. What exactly are you asking of us? Deploy your battle fleet to enforce a ceasefire, Thexil explained. The Galactic Council will provide compensation in the form of technological exchanges, resource rights, and formal recognition as a galactic power. Lee exchanged glances with Kim and Choi. The three humans had worked together for over a decade, and they could communicate volumes with just a look. "There's something you need to understand," Lee said carefully. "We're not warriors. The New Dawn is a colony ship. Our fleet consists of mining vessels, cargo haulers, and mobile habitats. We don't have battle cruisers or weapons of mass destruction." The aliens seemed to find this amusing. Thexil's crystal body chimed with what sounded like laughter. "Your modesty is unnecessary, Captain. Our intelligence indicates humans possess significant military capabilities. Your recent encounters with pirate fleets demonstrate tactical superiority despite technological disadvantages." "Those weren't military operations," Choi protested. "We were defending our families. When someone threatens your kids, you fight. With whatever you have." "Precisely," the Hiver clicked approvingly. "Your species exhibits remarkable combat adaptability under pressure. This quality is what the Council requires." Lee studied the holographic display again, watching the refugee streams fleeing from system to system. Children on those ships, families torn apart by a war they didn't start and couldn't escape. "We're not warriors," Lee repeated quietly. Then looked up at the towering aliens. "But those are innocent people dying out there. How can we turn our backs on that?" He moved to the ship's communication console and activated the emergency beacon. "This is Captain Li Huan of New Dawn Colony to all human vessels in the sector. We have a situation that requires immediate response. All available ships converge on our position for emergency briefing." Ambassador Thexil's translator crackled with confusion as the ship's long-range sensors began lighting up with contact signatures. "Captain, our sensors are detecting multiple faster-than-light transitions. Your vessels appear to be numerous." Lee smiled grimly. "When humans hear a call for help, we don't ask questions first, we respond." What the aliens didn't understand was the nature of human colonial organization. Each settlement was connected to dozens of others through family ties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. When one colony called for help, the entire network responded. Within 6 hours, 37 human vessels had arrived in the system. Converted mining ships bristling with improvised weapons, cargo haulers reinforced with extra armor plating, and mobile habitats equipped with defensive systems that had never been tested in real combat. Admiral Glubrex's tentacles writhed in, patterns that indicated extreme confusion. These vessels, they appear to be civilian craft modified for combat operations. "That's exactly what they are," Commander Kim confirmed. "We don't maintain standing armies or battle fleets. When trouble comes, we convert whatever we have into whatever we need." The Hiver's compound eyes reflected the growing fleet outside. "Remarkable, a military force assembled from agricultural and industrial infrastructure within standard day cycle. This level of rapid mobilization exceeds theoretical maximums for species at your technological level." What the aliens couldn't comprehend was that they weren't looking at a military response. They were witnessing something far more dangerous. An entire community of humans who had decided that someone needed help, and nothing in the universe was going to stop them from providing it. The war was about to change in ways no one could predict. Admiral Azixara of the Zephyrian Fourth Fleet reclined in her command throne, her serpentine body coiled in loops of gleaming scales that shifted from deep purple to silver in the bridge's ambient lighting. Her 6 eyes, each the size of a human fist, focused on the main tactical display showing the approaching human vessels. "By the eternal flame," she hissed, her forked tongue tasting the recycled air for any hint of deception. "These are the reinforcements the Council sent? I've seen asteroid mining operations with more impressive equipment." The human ships looked like someone had welded together spare parts from a junkyard and somehow made them fly. Their hulls were patchworks of different metals, scarred with what appeared to be rust stains, but were actually the burn marks from countless hours of welding and modification. Some vessels still bore faded corporate logos from mining companies and freight services. Captain Silthara, Zixara's tactical officer, slithered closer to the command throne. Her younger scales gleamed with the confidence of someone who had never faced an unexpected enemy. "Admiral, Our sensors indicate their largest vessel is approximately 2 kilometers in length, but it's basically a flying habitat. They've literally brought their families to a battle zone. Their weapon signatures are equally pathetic, added Commander Vexmore from the weapons station. Magnetic acceleration systems that wouldn't penetrate our secondary shields. Chemical propulsion missiles that our point defense systems could intercept while powered down. And their energy weapons... He paused to let out a contemptuous laugh. Industrial cutting tools, Admiral. They're bringing mining equipment to fight our plasma cannons. Admiral Zixara's serpentine form shook with amusement, creating a sound like rattling chains. Perhaps the Council has finally lost what passes for their collective mind. Send a message to the Crystalline Collective. Suggest we settle our differences. After we dispose of these primitives, it would be unsporting to let them die without purpose. On the opposite side of the three-dimensional battlefield, floating in the ethereal realm between normal space and the psychic dimension, crystalline overmind Kethlos shared similar sentiments. Its massive form was a living cathedral of geometric crystal formations, each facet pulsing with contained psychic energy that could shatter minds across star systems. The overmind's consciousness touched each of its subordinate vessels simultaneously, broadcasting its thoughts directly into their crystal matrices. Primitive kinetic weapons, chemical thrusters, and metal armor plating. These creatures still fight with rocks and sticks, exactly as our ancestors did before achieving psychic transcendence. They will be annihilated in the first exchange of fire. Lesser overmind Zelquin, commanding a formation of crystal battleships that resembled floating mountains of living gemstone, pulsed with eager anticipation. Shall we demonstrate our superiority immediately? Our psychic lance weapons could disable their primitive electronic systems from maximum range. Patience, Kethlos responded, its mental voice carrying overtones of cruel amusement. Let them. Position themselves between our fleets. When they realize the futility of their situation, their terror will be nourishing. Fear from primitive minds has such an interesting flavor. Neither faction paid the slightest attention to the frantic activity aboard the human ships. They were too busy calculating how quickly they could eliminate the newcomers and return to their private war. Aboard the New Dawn, Chief Engineer Choi Min-soo hadn't slept in 36 hours. His coveralls were stained with lubricants, metal, shavings, and the kind of stubborn grime that comes from rebuilding an entire ship's systems while in deep space. "Park, hand me that plasma torch," he called to his assistant engineering specialist Park Jun-ho, a young man who had signed up for colonial survey work and found himself modifying weapon systems he'd only read about in technical manuals. "Chief, are you sure about mounting the railguns on the cargo bay doors?" Jun-ho asked, wielding the torch with the careful precision of someone who knew that one wrong move could breach the hull. "The structural stress calculations are way beyond recommended parameters," Min-soo grinned, his face blackened with soot, but his eyes bright with the kind of manic energy that comes from solving impossible problems. "Kid, recommended parameters assume you're following someone else's rules. We're writing our own rules now." The engineering teams had worked miracles in the brief time since the aliens' arrival. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroid rock were being recalibrated into focused cutting beams. Ore processing equipment was converted into ammunition fabrication systems. The ship's automated cargo handling systems were reprogrammed to serve as weapons loading mechanisms. "The alien energy weapons are incredibly powerful," Min-soo reported to Captain Lee over the ship's communication system. "But here's the thing. They're designed to overwhelm energy shields and disrupt electronic systems. Our ships don't use energy shields. We use good old-fashioned armor plating, the kind that's designed to survive impacts from space debris traveling at significant fractions of light speed." Captain Lee's voice crackled back through the intercom. "What about their superior technology?" "That's actually working in our favor," Min-soo explained, pausing to wipe sweat from his forehead. "Their weapons are so advanced they're specialized. Our weapons are crude, but they're adaptable. A magnetic railgun doesn't care if it's shooting at a Zephyrian battlecruiser or an asteroid. Tungsten is tungsten, and physics is physics, on the bridge, Commander Kim Dae-ho studied the tactical displays, with the focused intensity of someone whose family lived 3 decks below the command center. The alien fleets were impressive, sleek vessels that moved like predatory fish through space, their hulls gleaming with energy fields and exotic materials. Their fighters rely on speed and energy weapons, Kim observed, highlighting sections of the display with his laser pointer. But look at their attack patterns. They're designed for fighting other energy-based technologies. Our point defense systems were originally built to intercept mining debris traveling at high velocity. Anything smaller than a refrigerator moving faster than a bullet, our systems can track and destroy. What about their numbers? Asked Tactical Officer Song Mi-young, a former asteroid mining coordinator who had volunteered for military duty. When her husband's transport had been destroyed by pirates 2 years earlier. 200 ships per side, Kim replied. But they're thinking like traditional military commanders. They expect us to follow standard fleet engagement protocols. We're not going to do that. Throughout the human fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Captain Yoon So-ra of the converted ore hauler Iron Will was explaining to her crew why they were welding additional armor plating to their already heavily protected hull. Captain Han Dong-min of the mobile habitat Frontier Hope was converting his ship's asteroid defense systems into anti-fighter weapons. The human approach to warfare was fundamentally different from anything the galaxy had seen. Where other species built dedicated military vessels, humans modified whatever they had. Where others relied on sophisticated energy weapons, humans used simple kinetic force applied with devastating efficiency. Attention all vessels, Captain. Lee's voice broadcast across the human fleet as they took their positions between the 2 massive alien armadas. Final weapon checks and system diagnostics. Remember, we're not here to win a war. We're here to stop one. These people have been killing each other for 3 years. Today, we're going to make them sit down and talk. The Human Fleet, 37. Converted civilian vessels carrying families, miners, engineers, and farmers positioned themselves directly between 400 of the galaxy's most advanced warships. To any rational observer, it looked like suicide. What the aliens couldn't see was that every human ship contained something no amount of advanced technology could replicate. People who had chosen to risk everything for strangers they'd never met, simply because it was the right thing to do. The galaxy was about to learn that there's no weapon more dangerous than humans who have decided to help someone. The 3 suns of the Kepler 442 system cast an eerie orange glow across the battlefield as 2 massive alien fleets faced each other in the deadly silence of space. Between them, like a tiny cork bobbing between 2 tsunamis, floated the ragtag human fleet of 37 converted civilian vessels. Admiral Zixara coiled tighter in her command throne, her serpentine form radiating the cold confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "Begin the demonstration," she hissed to her weapons officer. "Let these primitives see what real warfare looks like, before we grant them the mercy of a quick death." The first shots came from the Zephyrian flagship, twin streams of superheated plasma that blazed across space like miniature suns. The energy beams, each containing enough power to level a city, struck the lead human vessel dead center. The converted ore hauler, Iron Will, under Captain Yoon So-ra, took the full brunt of the attack. The plasma washed over the ship's hull like liquid fire, creating a light show that could be seen from the outer planets. Every alien commander expected to see the human ship vaporize instantly. Instead, the Iron Will emerged from the plasma, cloud completely intact. "Armor plating holding steady," reported Chief Engineer Kim Tae-won over the ship's intercom, his voice carrying a note of amazed relief. "Hull temperature spiked to 1200 degrees, but we're still within acceptable parameters for our heat dissipation systems. Some surface scoring on the outer hull, nothing more." Captain So-ra grinned from her command chair, watching her ship's systems display green across the board. "Turns out all those years of mining in stellar corona zones paid off. We built these ships to survive flying through the outer atmosphere of stars. Alien plasma cannons are just a warm summer day by comparison." Admiral Zixara's 6 eyes widened in absolute disbelief, their pupils contracting to pinpoints. "Impossible," she whispered, then louder, her voice rising to a screech. "Impossible! Those plasma cannons can melt through a battlecruiser's primary, shields in seconds. They can crack the hull of a dreadnought. From across the battlefield, crystalline overmind Kethlos decided to demonstrate its own species' superiority. The massive crystal entity focused its psychic energy through the specialized weapons of its fleet, launching a barrage of crystalline shards accelerated to near-light speed by pure mental force. The projectiles struck the human ships like cosmic hail, each one carrying the kinetic energy of a small meteor. The impacts created spectacular light shows as crystal met metal at impossible velocities. Any normal spacecraft would have been shredded into component atoms. The human vessels shuddered under the assault, their hulls ringing like struck bells. But when the light faded and the debris cleared, they were still there. The alien weapons had left meter-deep gouges in the thick armor plating, scars that would be worn like badges of honor, but nothing that threatened the ship's structural integrity. Their psychic attacks aren't even registering on our sensors, reported Communications Officer Park Nari from the New Dawn. Whatever frequency they're using to disrupt electronic systems, our equipment just ignores it. Commander Kim Dae-ho laughed grimly. Our computers are too primitive to be affected by advanced psychic warfare. Sometimes, being behind the curve has its advantages. Then the humans returned fire, and the galaxy learned what true warfare looked like. The magnetic railguns, hastily mounted on cargo bay doors and mining platforms, unleashed torrents of tungsten slugs at velocities that made the alien weapons look sluggish. These weren't sophisticated energy beams or exotic particle weapons. They were chunks of dense metal, accelerated to significant fractions of light speed by simple electromagnetic force. The Zephyrian energy shields, designed to deflect plasma, beams and energy weapons, offered no protection whatsoever against solid projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. The first barrage punched through 3 Zephyrian destroyers like they were made of tissue paper, leaving perfectly round holes that glowed red-hot around the edges. "Shields are useless," screamed Captain Silthara from her damaged destroyer. "The projectiles pass right through our defensive screens. They're using primitive kinetic weapons." All fighters, engage the human vessels immediately, Admiral Zixara commanded, her voice cracking with the first notes of panic she'd felt in centuries of warfare. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of sleek alien fighters swarmed toward the human fleet like angry wasps, their energy weapons creating a light show that rivaled the system's 3 suns. Zephyrian fighters moved like liquid mercury, while crystalline fighters resembled flying jewels that sparkled with deadly beauty. What they encountered was a wall of defensive fire, unlike anything in recorded galactic warfare. The human point defense systems had been designed for one purpose: clearing asteroid fields during mining operations. They were built to track and destroy anything smaller than a house moving faster than a bullet, whether it was space debris, rogue comets, or chunks of rock blasted loose during excavation work. Fighter craft, it turned out, fell well within those parameters. "Target acquisition locked," announced weapons specialist Li Jinwu aboard the mobile habitat Frontier Hope. "Point defense grid active, engaging multiple contacts." The defensive systems opened fire with mechanical precision, filling space with streams of high-velocity projectiles that created a deadly web around each human vessel. Alien fighters that had dominated battlefields across the galaxy found themselves flying into a meat grinder of intersecting fire patterns. Captain Yoon, Sora watched her tactical display as enemy fighter signatures vanished one by one like stars going out. "Their pilots are too aggressive," she observed to her bridge crew. "They're flying attack patterns designed for fighting other energy weapon ships. They expect to dodge plasma beams and particle cannons, not clouds of solid projectiles." The alien fighters tried to adapt, but their tactics were based on thousands of years of energy weapon warfare. They knew how to spiral around plasma streams and dance between particle beams, but they had no experience with kinetic weapons that filled entire volumes of space with deadly metal. "This is madness," broadcast Lesser Overmind Zelquin as its crystal fighters were systematically destroyed. "How do you dodge a wall of solid matter?" The human vessels pressed forward into the heart of the battle, their converted mining lasers carving through enemy hulls like hot knives through butter. What had been designed to slice through solid rock proved devastatingly effective against alien armor designed to resist energy weapons. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, watching his improvised fleet tear through the galaxies. Most advanced military forces like they were training dummies. All ships, maintain formation. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to convince them to stop fighting each other. The New Dawn itself, still fundamentally a colony ship carrying families and civilians, broke through the crystalline battle line using nothing more than reinforced hull plating and the kind of overwhelming firepower that comes from mounting industrial equipment on a spacecraft designed to survive anything the universe could throw at it. Chief Engineer Choi Min-soo reported from the engine room, "Captain, our improvised weapons are performing beyond all expectations. The mining lasers are cutting through their hulls faster than we can target new ships, and our railguns—" He paused, checking his readings. "Sir, I think we've accidentally created some of the most effective anti-ship weapons in the galaxy." Within 6 hours of the first shot being fired, both alien fleets were in full retreat. Ships that had dominated space battles for millennia fled before a ragtag collection of mining vessels and cargo haulers operated by farmers, engineers, and colonial families. Admiral Zixara's flagship limped away from the battlefield, its hull scored by tungsten impacts and its pride shattered beyond repair. "How?" she whispered to her bridge crew. "How did primitives with metal clubs defeat the finest military technology in the galaxy?" Her tactical officer, nursing burns from an overloaded console, provided the answer that would haunt military academies for generations. "They weren't fighting like soldiers, Admiral. They were fighting like people protecting their families. And they brought tools designed to break apart entire worlds. The Battle of Three Suns was over, but its implications would reshape galactic civilization forever." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the Grand Assembly Hall, but the usual cacophony of diplomatic chatter had been replaced by stunned silence. Representatives from 300 species sat in their designated areas, their various forms of communication, clicks, whistles, telepathic pulses, and bioluminescent flashes, all muted by disbelief. Admiral Zixara's serpentine form was coiled. In the witness chair, her once proud scales now dulled to the grey colour that indicated defeat among her people. Her 6 eyes, which had once blazed with the confidence of military superiority, now stared at the floor as she delivered her report in a voice barely above a whisper. "The humans destroyed 47 of our finest warships," she began, each word seeming to cause her physical pain. "The Starfire Dominion, our most advanced dreadnought, was cut in half by what appeared to be an industrial cutting laser. The Void Serpent, which had never taken significant damage in 2 centuries of warfare, was holed by primitive kinetic weapons that passed through our shields like they weren't even there." She paused, her forked tongue flicking out nervously. "Their vessels are primitive by our standards, but they're built like fortress worlds. We hit them with everything. Plasma cannons that can melt asteroids, particle beams that can crack moons, quantum torpedoes that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Nothing we threw at them caused significant damage. Their ships just absorbed it all and kept fighting." On the opposite side of the witness platform, crystalline overmined Kethlos's massive form flickered with colors that had never been seen before in the assembly hall, the deep purples and blacks that indicated terror among the crystal entities. Its telepathic voice, usually commanding and confident, now trembled as it shared its thoughts with the gathered delegates. "Our psychic assault coordinators report findings that challenge everything we understand about warfare," Kethlos broadcast, its crystalline structure dimming with each transmitted thought. "Human minds appear to be naturally resistant to psychic manipulation. When we attempted to override their targeting systems, to fill their crews with paralyzing fear, to turn their own weapons against them, their computers simply ignored our intrusion. The Overmind's form pulsed with confused energy. It was as if we were trying to influence rocks or machines. Their consciousness operates on frequencies we cannot touch, and their technology is so primitive it lacks the sophisticated neural interfaces that we normally exploit. We could not turn their systems against them because their systems are too simple to be turned." Ambassador Thexil, His crystalline body, cycling through shades of blue that indicated deep contemplation, turned to face the center of the assembly hall, where Captain Li Huan stood calmly, flanked by Commander Kim Dae-ho and Chief Engineer Choi Min-soo. The three humans appeared remarkably relaxed for people who had just revolutionized galactic warfare. "Captain Li," Thexil began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber through the translation matrix, "your fleet has accomplished in one day what we feared would take years of negotiation and military intervention. Both the Zephyrian Empire and the Crystalline Collective are requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations and have agreed to binding arbitration." Captain Li nodded slowly, his hands clasped behind his back in a gesture that somehow managed to project both humility and quiet confidence. "Our people have a saying, Ambassador. All it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We couldn't stand by and watch innocent beings die in a war that served no purpose beyond pride and territory. We're prepared to maintain a peacekeeping presence in the disputed sectors until a formal treaty is signed," Commander Kim added. "Our ships are already coordinating refugee resettlement and humanitarian aid distribution." The chamber buzzed, with the sounds of hundreds of species discussing this development in their various languages. The idea of humans, these newcomers who had been dismissed as primitives, serving as peacekeepers for advanced galactic civilizations, was almost too strange to process. Ambassador Thexil's form brightened as he prepared to ask the question that every delegate was thinking. "Captain, about your fleet, those ships that fought in the Battle of Three Suns, they represent your military's full strength, the complete military capability of your species." Captain Li exchanged glances with his companions, and all three humans began to smile in a way that made several alien delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Those weren't military vessels, Ambassador," Li explained, his voice carrying just a hint of amusement. "The New Dawn is a colony ship carrying 15,000 civilian settlers. The Iron Will is a converted ore hauler. The Frontier Hope is a mobile habitat for asteroid miners. We don't actually have a military fleet out here in the colonies. We're all civilians, farmers, engineers, teachers, families." The effect of this revelation was immediate and dramatic. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers, chittering, clicking, and the various other sounds that indicated extreme surprise across dozens of species. Several delegates activated their translation devices multiple times, convinced they had misheard. Admiral Zixara's serpentine form went completely rigid, her eyes widening to their maximum diameter as the implications hit her. "If those were your civilian vessels," she asked, her voice cracking with something approaching panic, "then what would happen if your homeworld decided to send actual warships?" The smile faded from Captain Li's face, replaced by an expression of complete seriousness. "Earth's military doctrine has a philosophy that we call peace through superior firepower. The idea is that the best way to prevent war is to be so overwhelmingly powerful that no one wants to fight you in the first place." He paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of alien representatives hanging on his every word. "You really don't want to find out what our actual battleships look like? The ships you fought were designed to survive in deep space, to handle asteroid impacts and stellar radiation. Our military vessels are designed for only one purpose: to win wars quickly and decisively." Chief Engineer Choi stepped forward, his expression matching his captain's seriousness. "The weapons we used against you were mining equipment and cargo handling systems. Our actual military technology is classified, but I can tell you this much. If we can cut through your hulls with industrial lasers, imagine what we can do with weapons specifically designed to destroy enemy ships." The silence that followed was so complete that the life support system seemed loud by comparison. For the first time in galactic history, a species had established itself as the dominant military power not through conquest or intimidation, but by accidentally demonstrating that their civilian infrastructure was more powerful than everyone else's military forces. 3 months later, the Treaty of Three Suns was signed in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. The document established not only peace between the former warring factions, but also created the first lasting multi-species cooperation agreement in recorded galactic history. Trade routes were reopened, Refugee populations were resettled, and reconstruction efforts began on the devastated worlds. The human fleet remained in the sector as neutral peacekeepers, their mere presence serving as a guarantee that the peace would hold. Former military bases were converted into relief stations, and warships were repurposed for humanitarian missions. In the depths of space, Captain Yun So-ra stood on the bridge of the Iron Will, watching through the main viewport, as Zephyrian and Crystalline work crews collaborated on rebuilding a space station that had been destroyed in the early days of the war. Her ship, still bearing the scars from the Battle of Three Suns, now served as the flagship of the peacekeeping fleet. Chief Engineer Kim Tae-won approached with a datapad, his face showing the satisfied expression of someone whose improvised weapons had performed far beyond expectations. "Captain, we've received a priority message from Earth Command. They're asking if we need military support out here. Apparently, word of what happened has reached the homeworld, and they're prepared to send a full battle fleet." Captain So-ra smiled, looking out at the peaceful reconstruction efforts where former enemies now worked side by side. "Tell them thanks, but we've got this handled. Just a few converted cargo ships and mining vessels keeping the peace. Nothing we can't manage." She paused, watching a group of young Zephyrian and Crystalline engineers sharing technical data as they worked together on repairing a communications array. Her expression grew thoughtful. "But maybe don't mention that to the locals," she added, with a grin. "Let them think we're the most dangerous things in the galaxy. Sometimes the best weapon is the one you never have to use." The message was sent, Earth Command was satisfied, and the galaxy continued to believe that humanity's civilian fleet represented their full military capability. In the years that followed, the mere mention of human intervention would be enough to end conflicts before they began. Peace, it turned out, really was achievable through superior firepower, especially when no one wanted to find out just how superior that firepower actually was. The humans had stumbled into becoming the galaxy's peacekeepers, not through conquest or politics, but simply by being exactly what they had always been: people who couldn't stand by and watch others suffer. The end.